For many years, just one cinema dominated Rochester, and that was the Majestic, later renamed the GAUMONT, and then the Odeon.
My mum worked at the Rochester Majestic, as it was known then the GAUMONT and the Odeon. And her sister Eve also worked there, her older sister Eve, and later her younger sister Wendy. So the three sisters all had a job there as usherettes, stroke cashiers.
The people of Rochester had to go to one of the other Medway towns if they wanted to see films, until it was announced on the 5th of May 1933 that the city was to get Kent's largest cinema. It would cost around £75,000 and would include a dance hall, cafe and roof garden, and would be called the Astoria. As the new cinema was being built, the name and certain aspects of the plan were modified and changed. The new super cinema was opened on the 15th of April 1935, a grand affair with various actors and local dignitaries in attendance. The films Iron Duke and $1 Million Ransom were preceded by a musical interlude played by Jack Hartland on the cinema's 3-manual 11-rank Compton organ with lift and solo cello attachment.
My grandmother, she was then Doris Healsley, worked there, and I think it was between 1934 and 1938. She was cashier, and it appears from when she left, she probably left when she got married, because she actually left in April 1938, and that's exactly when she got married.
My mum used to be an usherette there when she was a young woman, and that's where she met my dad. And the funny story is, the usherettes used to have the back row for their boyfriends, and they used to keep the seats vacant for their boyfriends. And one day somebody put my dad in the seat of one of the usherettes' boyfriend seats, and my mum was told to go and move him. Well, my dad wouldn't move. He said, "No, I've paid for the seat, I'm sitting here." Well, that's how they met. My mum, they ended up, I don't know, my mum met my dad that way. They ended up courting, getting engaged, getting married. And then in 1939, Dad was in the dockyards, so they went to Bermuda for 4 years till 45, when I was born in 1944. So it was quite a romantic story.
I have got a letter from David Weston, who was the managing director of the Majestic at Rochester, dated 18th of December 1939. So it's to my grandmother, and saying he's obliged for her letter of the 15th, and has pleasure in sending herewith a testimonial as to your past services as a cashier at this theatre. And he went on to say, "I trust that you have no difficulty in obtaining the situation you require." And that's David Weston. And then attached to that is a reference addressed to whom it may concern. And it says that Miss Doris Healsley, formerly of New Road, Chatham, was employed at this theatre as assistant cashier from April 1935 to April 1938, and her services throughout this period were entirely satisfactory. She left of her own accord, and I wish her every success in her future career. David Weston, the Managing Director of the Majestic at Rochester. Well, this is a letter dated April the 8th, 1948, to my grandmother, and I don't know who it's from. It looks like it's signed from E.H., I think Tremaine, but that might not be right. And it's, "Dear Mrs. Russell, I was very pleased to hear from you again, and that you've had the good luck to secure a house on your own." And then going on to say that they'll try and meet up. "You'll be surprised to hear that the Majestic has gone down badly lately. The Palace is beating them most weeks. I don't suppose this has ever happened before. I expect it is because we are not there," which I assume was a very tongue-in-cheek comment. "Well, I think that this is all now. I am relieving in the pay box at the National now, and have to keep jumping up to issue tickets. Yours faithfully, E.H. Tremaine."
Even though the Majestic was grand and imposing on the outside, the interior was quite cosy and intimate by contrast, due to the skillful use of concealed lighting.
Better sound system, the screen was good. I'm sure you could still smoke in there, but they had these huge extractors in the Odeon. But that was built up a hill as well.
My mother, later in life known as Betty Smith, Her name was Elizabeth Cowlard then. She worked at the Odeon in Rochester. I've got some photographs here of her as an usherette. This is the picture of her. And she later was promoted to cashier, which there's also a lovely photo of all the staff at the Odeon at that present time. I remember the walls myself being covered with like a velvet velour covering. It seemed very luxurious. You can just about see that in the photographs. I've also got a photograph of her advertising a film called Holiday Camp, which is for Chatham Carnival, Chatham in Kent. And she is the lady with her foot on the ball. So it was a float for the carnival, and you can clearly see it's advertising this Butlin film from 1947 when Mum would have been about 19. I noticed that it says, it was called the Majestic then, which we all remember, but it actually says Majestic Palace, which I hadn't realised until I looked closely at the photograph. And it advertises Rochester and Chatham, but it was the Rochester Odeon that she worked at. Well, what we know as Odeon. She worked there when it was the Majestic, and I believe she was still there when it changed to the GAUMONT.
It could comfortably seat 2,181 people, 783 up in the balcony. The cafe could seat 50 people. After the cafe closed in October 1957, it and the dance hall became Rank's 15th Victor Sylvester Dance Studio.
And we used to park the car round the back and then turn it round sideways so no one else could park in the last little bit of it, and then bump the car back round again and drive it out. Stupid things kids do.
Although it was built with a large stage, this was not used for live shows generally until the Cyril Stapleton Band Show was booked for the first time in October 1957. With large stage and several dressing rooms, the cinema was an ideal venue for shows of this kind, and for the next 10 years, many British and American pop stars appeared here. Names included the Everly Brothers, Little Richard, and the Rolling Stones.
The Odeon Cinema in Rochester was also a theatre. And in the 60s, you had bands like the Rolling Stones and all the pop, latest pop stars all used to come down to the Odeon for the shows down there. And they had some fantastic shows in there, as well as being the cinema. I saw the Rolling Stones there.
The GAUMONT, as it was called from October 1962, installed new 70mm film and stereo sound systems, which were used to great effect in showing South Pacific and The Sound of Music, which ran for 8 weeks, the longest ever run in the Medway towns. In 1974, it became a triple-screen venue, including a 700-seat Circle cinema and 2 120-seat mini cinemas.
Moonraker, yes. So, age about 12, I think we would have been. I had a French friend who was a student, used to come over in the summer. I was quite a James Bond fan at that age. You are at that age, aren't you? Being a big fan, I assumed it would be a big queue to go and see it, to be the first in the town to go and see it, like there was for Star Wars back in '78, you see. And so me and my friend went down there. It must have been fairly early in the morning, I think, stood outside waiting for the queue to turn up, which didn't turn up. And then around lunchtime-ish, I think the manager came out and spoke to us, what are you doing? And said, we're queuing for Moon. We thought there'd be a big queue by now, and there's not a queue yet. I said, and he said, well, we're doing a special showing with the mayor's coming and all the VIPs are coming. So the first showing isn't until a lot later. It might be why there's no queue. So we're a bit despondent, a bit disappointed because we've been stood there all day. And then he, from what I remember now, he just said, well, you can come into the earlier showing, come and see, come and see that. So in we trot, really pleased with ourselves. We're going to go and see it a bit early with the VIPs and stuff, and the local paper, the Evening Post at the time, were there, and They wanted us sitting next to the mayor for a photograph, and then they shoved us back up the back away from all the VIPs, like the kids we were.
Because the Odeon, when I was a kid, only had one screen. Then they closed it down, I'd say late 70s, and built 3 screens, a multi-screen, and that was a marvel, because where could you go in the world and watch 3 different films? I mean, nowadays you can watch 10. It was an iconic building in Rochester, and it was one of them buildings I think everybody my age group, like early 60s and older, sorely miss. It was just parcel of being a child in the 70s.
The reopening of the New Look Cinema was one of the last ceremonies to be performed by the Mayor of Rochester before Medway Borough Council was formed. The Odeon, as it was now called, was not ideally situated to serve the Medway towns, and finally showed its last films on the 31st of October 1981, being demolished in 1986 to make way for a block of old people's flats.
Well, we haven't got a theatre like it now. Right, you've got the Central Hall in Chatham, but the Odeon was much, much bigger. And it was 2 stories, so, full stories, not just the little balcony bits. So why they ever consented to having that knocked down and flats or whatever it is put there? Because it would have made a fantastic theatre.
Plans to turn part or all of the cinema into a bingo hall had been considered since 1970, but nothing ever came of it.
It was something I always remember, and it's a shame to see that sort of thing gone.
I worked just up the road in Star Hill at about the time that it was knocked down and the flats were built, and it just seemed such a shame to let it come to that after so many years. And obviously it had a lot of very good years. I know my grandmother always spoke really fondly about it. She enjoyed her days there. But I think in those days when people got married, they stopped work. And so that's what she did. Otherwise she probably wouldn't have left when she did.